Thank you. Isaiah has withdrawn his offer on the board. So at this point in time, we need to add precinct 8 to our nominating committee to find a suitable applicant for, or suitable nominee for. Are there any questions? Oh, and the president will note that our current seated board members is 6. We have more than 4 board members present, so we have a quorum. Are there any questions regarding Isaiah Ulmer or the need to fill precinct 8?
Mr. President, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, this is Samantha. I just wanted to note for the board members that Isaiah sent his sincerest apologies. He's actually working on his master's degree, and we didn't know this. And so, like me, he has 2 young children, but he's also running a farm and working on his master's. And he said he just simply underestimated the time commitment and apologized profusely, but said he just was not going to be a good fit. So I wanted to provide that explanation because he was very apologetic about having to back out.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the information, Mrs. Salbeck. Any additional questions? Hearing none, Dwayne and James, I will ask you to continue to search for potential candidates for precinct 8.
Okay.
So agenda items 4 and 5 are the formal recognition of the resignations of our board member precinct 6, Bobby Sloan, and our board members from precinct 9, Keith Deputy. The nominating committee has been put in place. We have individuals that have expressed interest, and it is my intention to have a board meeting next week that we will select from the available individuals that have expressed interest in serving on the EBID board for precinct 6 and 9. If we can find somebody for precinct 8 by next week, we will put that on the agenda as well. And with that, Dwayne and James, do you have anything that you would like to add regarding from the nominating committee?
No, I have a few names at this time. I don't know if you want me to mention those names right now, or
I don't think we need to mention the names yet. I think we can bring them with us to the meeting next week.
Okay. We have a meeting set up with a couple of them tomorrow.
Excellent.
So, yes.
James, did you have anything else to add?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I don't know if you could hear me or not. Yeah, I've talked to them. Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow on a couple of people, so we'll let you know on that. What Dwayne said.
Excellent. Thank you very much, James. Are there any questions from the board regarding the nominating process? Very good. That brings us to the principal agenda item, which is the selection process for the new manager. It is appropriate for us to start forming how we want to go about selecting a new manager, to discuss what we want to define the job duties and requirements for the manager. It has been suggested by a couple of constituents to me that we look at utilizing a headhunting firm to seek out qualified and experienced candidates for the position. We also have the process that we used at our last selection, which was to publish the job and to review the applicants that apply to that publication. With that, I would open it up to the board for comments on what you'd like to see from the selection process for the new manager?
Well, this is James. Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, go ahead with some other firm. That way nobody gets excited and it's not one person and somebody from the outside, and we can agree and not agree, after it's done. I mean, it's going to be a little bit of money, but maybe it's something to think about. I think because the way things are nowadays, everybody wants their own person in there, and sometimes, it didn't work out last time, so it might be better this look for something like that.
I concur with James in this respect. Right now, I feel there's quite a bit of eyes watching Greg on what we do next. And if we can shift some of that, and here's another thing with that firm, and I know Sam and everybody's listening, we need some strong input from our leadership as to what that person might. I know we're going to be doing evaluation. I know we're going to do all those reviews, and we're going to look at those candidates for what they can bring to the table. But I hope that when we send this person out there to look, that person that they're looking for has some of the qualities that we need in a leader right now that may be different than what we might have done in that review a little bit. And one of the things I hope we consider is how we can bring this group back together, especially from the south down there, James, where you're at. And maybe with these new board members, they can help facilitate that. But we really, I think, need to call attention to the fact that we're a pretty divided bunch right now. And we need to bring that back together as much as we can. And maybe this firm, if they'll have that in their scope when they look at this new person, for openness that way, would sure help.
Thank you very much, Joe Paul. Appreciate the input on that. Any other comments?
I agree. I think the search committee, broader pool of applicants that way. So that'd be my recommendation, is go with the search committee.
Very good. I want to be sure I understand that, Frank. Are you suggesting we form a search committee on the board and they agree?
No, go with the headhunter.
Gotcha. Thank you, Frank. Any other comments? All right. One of the things I have been considering is kind of what position looks like in terms of, are we looking for somebody? Are we thinking of our organization as being led in a way that a private entity would be, given its size and its scope? Or are we looking at this more of an individual that would be leading a government entity like a cabinet secretary? The private CEO approach, my expectation would be that would be more expensive, probably in the range of about 150% of the salary of a cabinet secretary. The cabinet secretary role that we would be clearly stating we're looking for a political appointee. We're not looking for somebody that is advancing in private industry through whatever career steps those would be. I'm interested in it's from the boards about which approaches that would be. Currently, cabinet secretaries in New Mexico earn about $170,000 a year.
I haven't thought of that, but
Mr. President,
brain around-
I hate to interrupt, but I do need to at this moment in time. I'm not sure I understand from a legal perspective what you mean about going one direction or the other with this entity. This entity is legally a hybrid. So we often have to address that exact issue in the context of litigation in discussions related to EBID's jurisdiction and what it can and can't do. That's something I would really prefer that the board not weigh into in the legal sense without knowing a whole lot more about the historical positions EBID's taken and why.
Sure. If I can, I apologize if I've not defined that well. When we're giving instructions to a headhunting firm about about what type of candidates we'll be competing for. Are we looking for people that will be running private organizations with staffs of up to 100 individuals? Or are we looking for people that would be more in line with political appointees at the cabinet secretary level position?
I think I understand that this is solely related to the employment of the treasurer manager. However, I wanted to clarify because you made a statement that in one realm, we would make abundantly clear that this is a political appointee. In the private CEO realm, it wouldn't necessarily be poised that way. And I want to be really careful that you understand that this is a political appointee, even though we are a quasi-governmental entity. Regardless of what you choose to do as far as headhunting, that doesn't change the status of what that person's title is and what their job duties are and how that works under your statutes. So I want to be very careful that we're defining that line very brightly, because that could cause some issues. The other thing is there are a lot of backup documents related to the treasurer manager position that are set up particular ways because of this person being a political appointee, regardless of whether you view this as a public or private situation. So I want to be abundantly clear about that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salpek. I appreciate the clarification there. And I agree with all of the statements that Mrs. Salpek just made.
Yeah.
I'm not stating them very well, but I'm looking for input from the board on how you want to scope the headhunting. Do you want them looking at people that, you know, would be making higher salaries and bringing that salary into EBID for our political appointee? Or do we want to be looking at offering something commensurate with cabinet level positions?
Let me suggest something here. I think the best candidate, because it is I seen that, I didn't know how to say it. Thank you, Sam. I understand it's very much a hybrid position. You've got private industry out there chased by a public appointee, and I think that gets to be a place where I wish I was like Greg, that I had more study on how that fits. But I do know that I'm more interested in the best candidate who has some, I'm going to say, background in farming, background in family, background in understanding kind of how if we can find someone, Greg, that kind of has some experience being around this, what we do every day, instead of someone that just has maybe a business degree that's not had much experience in running water and understanding how the community of farmers come together. You know, we've got a lot of hats that we screw on our head and go out and meet today with. And a candidate that I think would be best is one that understands that some way. I don't know how we can convey that in the process of hiring, but we sure need to feel that somewhere in the system when we do that, because we might end up with someone who's very good at making collars, and we may need dog for cats and we may need them for dogs, if I can say that.
Thank you, Joe Paul. Other input from the board? Hearing no other input, Selena and Samantha, it would be my expectation that I would be tasking one of you with reviewing the process for engaging a headhunter and reporting back to the board, hopefully at our next board meeting. I would be looking for input on how to task that. My default would be to task it to Selena.
I guess I would say to that, you're the client. That's how work gets assigned, right? There's some pretty good leads I can get Selena started with. There's other people I can put her into contact with in our industry, which I think might help. So I think it's a matter of her workload and whether she's available and how that plays out. But that's a client directing us. So I don't know why you would need input from us, Greg.
You hit the nail on the head. Workload and ensure that I'm tasking this in the direction that I'm setting you up for success. Selena, your comments? I guess he's trying to unmute.
Hello?
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I usually have this on my computer, but my computer was not cooperating. So I'm doing this on my phone. So I wasn't used to it. So you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I do, what the date, let's see, when is our next board meeting?
I'm planning to call one next Wednesday.
Okay, I should be able, with Sam's direction, I should be able to get you something by then. So I do have the time is the answer to your question.
Very good. So if you would please, Selena, if you would do the investigation of potentially hiring a headhunting firm, what our procurement requirements will be for engaging them, and potential candidates for that firm.
Okay.
Any other comments from the board on the selection process for the new manager?
Yeah, hello, this is James. What about our lobbyist that we use? I can't remember his name right now, but they had that class move there in Arizona for managers, and you've been to that?
James,
Maybe they know somebody,
James, this
Go
is
ahead.
Samantha. I recognize what you're saying. I'll get Selena all of the information she needs.
Okay.
Essentially, I think the point is to keep me as far away from this as possible, regardless of the fact that I'm the one with the contacts. So that being the case, I'll make sure that Selena has everybody's contact information, from our lobbyists to other irrigation districts to other agency heads. There's a lot of people out there already talking about who might be a good candidate for EBID at, for example, the federal and DC level. So I will make sure she has all of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Samantha. Any other comment on the board regarding the selection process? Hearing none, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is the update from the management committee.
Mr. President, can I just interject? I actually do have one last comment. I don't think that it's a reasonable suggestion that Selena will be able to have all of those tasks ready for you by next week. Just based on what I know of how I would go about it, I don't think that's a fair ask of her.
Thank you. I appreciate that input. I'm still going to keep it on the agenda item for next Wednesday with the expectation that it will be incomplete, but we can get a report on progress on it and any potential roadblocks or hurdles that we need to overcome to accomplish that.
And I appreciate that, Sam, because since you're familiar with the process.
Well, I'm familiar with some headhunting firms, some lobbyists, some irrigation districts who've done this. So I'm not suggesting that there is any process here, frankly, but the asks on, for example, talking to everybody, then finding out what it would take to hire them, and then figuring out what direction in procurement. I don't see you doing that by next Tuesday. That's why I was saying assuming you had all the time available in your schedule, I don't see it happening that quickly just because of, yeah, we'll talk. There's a lot of calls that I think you're going to probably want to make.
Okay, thank you.
And I appreciate the boundaries for expectation being realistic. We're going to push very hard on this. We're going to try to expedite this as much as possible. We will not be aiming for the impossible. Very good. So back to the update from the management committee. So the management committee again consists of myself, Samantha, and Dr. King. We continue to meet almost daily to view what information and requests are coming into the district at a management level, and then directing those requests to the appropriate senior staff or members of the management committee. We continue to have weekly staff meetings to review progress of activities at EBID, and most specifically, where difficulties, roadblocks, or concerns are arising that are not able to be immediately addressed at the senior staff level, and then come to us for resolution. So again, we are not directing staff. We are facilitating their requirements. So with that, I would hand it over to Samantha for her input.
Oh, shoot. Okay, so I'm actually process of switching over. Give me just a second.
Okay, so with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. King.
Okay. One of, I guess, a lot of my focus has been on the engineering department lately. And we are continuing to search for a director of engineering. Hopefully we'll be getting some acceptable candidates applying in the very near future. A couple of things that we have going on right now. We've got engineering staff out in the field, I guess right now, at the Kinder Morgan gas spill site. And they are going to be monitoring an air sparge testing, which is a remediation technique that the NMED and Kinder Morgan are going to use to try to clean that up. Let's see. Okay, yes, we have Juan and Greg on site. Let's see, also we are pardon me, I got a lot going on my desktop here. As far as this is a little bit outside of the management committee, but we are holding fast to the June 2nd start date with El Paso number 1 is firm on that. We have another meeting coming up with Mexico, and I think that they have showed no inclination to do anything else. And so I think June 2nd is pretty solid. Greg, is there anything you particularly wanted me to address?
No, that's an excellent update. I appreciate it, Dr. King.
Okay.
Samantha.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was switching devices. So we, like Greg said, we continue to meet the management committee every morning for a few minutes. We go through the initial tasks, and once a week we're meeting with staff. We've started setting those meetings for Monday morning. We go around the room. We take, their hot button issues, basically. We're not doing their job. We're not directing their department. We're trying to facilitate them being successful in what they should be doing by, getting just basic direction. So there's hiring in the process. There's the starting of buying equipment. There's a lot of things going on that staff consistently is coming back to us and keeping us up to speed on as a day-to-day matter. Some of those are tying in a little bit bigger ways that hit my legal realm. So by about 10 or 11 a.m., I switch and go back into legal mode. And that's where things like we have staff dealing with problems with the city of Las Cruces and homeless people we once upon a time thought were fixed, and now we're finding that the city of Las Cruces is being even more obstinate in some ways. So we've got some of those issues going on. Really what we're trying to focus on from the management perspective right now, at least for my purposes, is what does the manager do and what should the manager be doing? And one of the things I'm finding that's persistent in my notes is that
You hear from farmers that they want to see the manager. The manager should be visible. But you also know that there's a lot of work that goes into being the manager that is not the same work that these farmers are expecting. So direction from the board sometime soon on what you would like your manager to actually be doing as we're setting up a process for how you're going to select one will be important, because frankly, I was shocked at the number of emails our manager was not getting every day. We clean out about 2 or 3 emails a day that go straight to him that the rest of us haven't seen. So there's a lot more coverage at EBID than I was actually expecting to see at that level, which is a good thing, right? The perception out there is that there's a lack of coverage within EBID. In some areas, Phil and I, there's less than adequate, less than desirable coverage, but we're doing well with what we've got. So do you want to consistently see that? And, you know, one of the things that I think everybody can agree is that having just a single lawyer for the entity is not a good idea. Do you want to vest everything within the manager, or do you want to consider an assistant manager at this point? Frankly, you have a bunch of very well qualified assistant managers already. You may not even need it. You have your department heads, but giving us some direction on, you know, what it means that the manager needs to be seen in the field. Because one of the things I started machinating on was, do we need then a different position created altogether for the person who's going to deal with agencies with me, with lobbyists, all of that sort of thing? And frankly, I don't think it's a good idea, but that's up to you guys. My opinion would be that the manager needs to be the face of EBID. But then again, you're the board. You need to just tell us what you want the face of EBID to be. If you want the manager to be the guy in the field chasing Leo and James and everybody around, Skada, Patrick, opening, you know, gates and shoveling ditches, that's one thing. If you want the face of the district to be to the farmers in that way, then that's a different way of selecting a manager. If you want the manager to be someone well-versed in DC politics, who knows regulatory issues, who's much more well-versed in the industry, he may not connect as well with the farmers, but he may do a far better job in other realms. So I think trying to define for us exactly what you're looking for going forward. Frankly, Greg, no offense, I didn't actually expect this conversation on selection process for the new manager to dive that far off into, well, what do we want? A CEO or an agency head? I think there's got to be a little more discussion that goes into that, because from where I'm sitting on the management committee, everybody else is covering what this one person does. He's just the central point of information. So if you want to break that up, or if you want to structure it differently, now would be the time to do it before you just hire someone, fit them in the role, send them on down the road and hope it works. So some of those things that I've been seeing that are important in this day-to-day work that I obviously are important in my realm, but are equally important in the manager's realm. How did Uncle Mark used to say it, James? The ability to stomp on someone's boots without ruining their shine. You've got to have finesse, and you've got to be able to talk to a wide variety of different people about different issues and stay calm. That's from farmers cussing you out to agency heads angry that you torpedoed their budget. So you've got to have a person well-versed in a lot of things. And what I'm wondering is, you know, EBID is in this world of unicorns, right? We have so many unicorns. We have people who only do this for these types of entities. Dr. King, Samantha, there's a lot of us that are these unicorns. Patrick Lopez, James Narvaez, Leo, they're so, you know, understanding of our system, the intricacies of our system. So do you want to continue down this path of creating unicorns as you need them, or do you want to try and standardize? And you may not be able to standardize the entire way, but do you want to look at that? These are some of the questions that are coming into my head as we're doing the day-to-day management, is basically, what does it look like? And does it need to look like this going forward?
at this point in time, I don't think I would ever recommend to you that you should look backwards to the days that the manager was out opening gates and shoveling ditches. That's just not what an irrigation district manager is these days. But if you want your manager to be that person out in the field and seen by the farmers, then you need to consider something else as a position who will be the public face of EBID, because to me, in my world, the public face is more important than the face for the farmers. The farmers are supposed to have buy-in into this board, and then you're supposed to put the best person up to take us into the world. That's the way I view this board and how EBID is to work. But correct me if I'm wrong, because that's something you guys need to address and change. I don't know that it's for today, but those are how what I'm seeing as far as management are coming into what you're doing with selection of managers, what you're doing to position the district going forward. You know, policy updates. We're looking at all sorts of things coming down the pipe to better situate EBID for a long time to come. So I would suggest that, you know, as you consider selection of a new manager, you also consider, you know, do we need to create other positions? What do we want this person to do? Give them direction. I want you in the field, or I want you in the boardroom. There's a difference. Those are my 2 cents, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Samantha. That's incredibly useful. And so I will into that as well. As our management committee is working the process of facilitating the activities of senior leadership of the district, those sorts of perspectives are coming to us. What is it that we're going to be looking for in the role of a manager? What are the roles that the board wishes to assign to that manager? And are there roles that we wish to be assigned elsewhere? And so, as Samantha put, understanding, do we want a manager whose primary responsibility is the supervision of senior leadership with a district? Do we want a manager whose primary responsibility is both our local public face as well as our policy guidance when we are traveling to Santa Fe, to Washington, D.C., to industry conferences? What is it they're going to be looking for from a manager? And I would suggest that having one person that does all of that is a difficult ask, that we're not setting a single individual up for success if they're expected to be visible in the field, supervising daily activities, as well as keeping up to speed on changes in policy, changes in direction from our coordinating agencies, and then attending all the various meetings to push the policy decisions of this board. Those are important things that we need to be thinking about as we're into the selection process. And I appreciate both Samantha and Dr. King's input on both of those. Other items for the management committee. So for operations, maintenance is continuing on track. We have a delay in permitting for the gauging station at Hainer Bridge. It is now being scheduled so that we can accomplish those tasks mid-September. We will be moving forward with all the permitting to accomplish that in the times that are required from the various coordinating agencies to be able to enter the banks of the river and do that work. Also, procurement has started on maintenance equipment that needs to be in place by next irrigation season. It takes a long to procure equipment, as you all know. And so those processes are engaged moving forward. The next step for the management committee is to further engage with Karen in finance and ensure that we are doing the things we need to do as the management committee to facilitate her compliance with budget and procurement. So we'll be hard charging that this coming week. With that, I would take any questions from the board for the committee. Wasn't sure if you're clearing your throat to speak, Joe. Paul, is just clear.
No, I'm just clearing my throat. I'm trying to drink some coffee here to wash it down. It's all good. I really like what we're talking about here, Greg, and I think cell phones do help multitask. I think right now, as Sam and everybody's talking about, and I sure feel a strong need for us to have someone that understands those department heads and how that works. And we need that person's face right there in that room, and also be able to be knowledgeable. I envision, or I hope, that we could hire someone that comes from a farm that understands that side of it first, and then can move into that 40,000 feet elevation. To fly at that place is very important right now. Probably more than we've ever needed that importance right now, to understand how that fits as a manager. And I think that's a big ask. I think that's you want to measure twice and cut once on this deal. And it's give me a lot of things to think about, but I like this conversation. I like where we're at, but it is a big ask.
Mr. President, can I follow up?
Please, Samantha.
I just want to say to the board, understand that it was not in any way a mistake to try to find someone to replace Gary. In fact, that was probably the hardest job to take on at EBID at that point in time. And so it was not a mistake to try. And the way it played out also was not a mistake. It was a learning process. And if you can learn from that, that's important. But the bottom line here is that if you're talking in terms of looking for that farm girl who knows the perspective and then goes to law school and runs up the flagpole and all of a sudden is at the lobbyist level in DC, you're never going to find that again in our life. That's a once in a lifetime situation. The rest of us, there's not many of us who run that route. So finding that unicorn is what I'm cautioning you against. Set some good boundaries, right? But don't set requirements like he has to be a farm boy and he has to have gone to, master's degree, and he has to have, you might find that you find somebody very good and then you have to take 10 years to train them. I constantly challenge Greg in his idea that we should have that management spot, like board spots, turning over regularly. Actually, I think knowledge is power, and I think continuity does far better for an entity like ours than the constant turnover. But that's just me.
Amen.
And that's because of how I have my perspective and how I do my job. I recognize there's benefit the other direction. I think you guys need to start thinking about this in terms of a conversation to come, not necessarily we need an answer right now, but we do need an answer soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samantha. And I appreciate diverse opinions. Go ahead, Sam.
I just said sorry about Daisy. She has plenty too.
And I appreciate diverse opinions, and you all need to hear different perspectives to help you form your opinions on how we proceed forward. And so I'm thrilled to have more opinions than just my own being expressed. Any other questions or comments for the management committee update? Thank you. Hearing none, we will move on to our next agenda item, which is the law of the Rio Grande Conference, April 3rd and 4th. So this has been an important conference for understanding the legal positions of our coordinating agencies and districts. It has been an important conference for networking, for how we move forward in areas where we may have conflict. So generally, we send council and board members to this conference. I will mention my workload is too high to attend. And so given our workload, I would recommend we don't send a large constituent, but we should consider attending it. And with that, I would hand it over to Mrs. Solopek to give her opinion.
And I'd just like to clarify, so the board does send me to that, but on this particular conference, because it is for my continuing legal ed, I pay my way. So the board isn't paying for me to go. And in this particular situation, the conference is solely related to Texas versus New Mexico. I'd like to have my two lead experts there with me. So I would like permission to take Phil and Eric. We would stay one night. Eric and I would go up Monday early, come back Tuesday after it's done. Phil would meet us up there.
Thank you very much, Samantha. So the recommendation from Samantha is that we send Dr. Fox and Dr. King along with her to the Law of the Rio Grande Conference. Dr. King, your input?
I would commute, so I don't need a hotel room.
Thank you very much. What other things do we have coming up in a week and a half that workload is impacting?
I have about an hour and a half long phone conference with Selena later today.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, Selena. Actually, so for right now, today we have Tula Resources and then Lower Rio Grande Drought Resiliency Team meetings all afternoon. Tomorrow, staff and I will be meeting with the Bureau of Reclamation in El Paso on finance related issues, cost reimbursement related issues. And then frankly, I have not a whole lot on my calendar until the growers meetings next Monday and Tuesday, Mr. President. Those obviously we have 2 of them on Monday, 1 of them on Tuesday afternoon. Other than that, that's pretty much what I have for both the management and legal calendars. Obviously a ton of work, but not a whole lot in terms of meetings.
Thank you very much. So with that, you've got input on recommendation on who to attend. You've got input on our workload moving into it. What will the board? So that's me asking for a motion to either people to this conference or not.
This is James. I make a motion to send those people to the Santa Fe or whatever we need. Kind of rough on TV here, but
I second that motion for the Rio Grande Conference, April 3rd and 4th.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Joe Paul. I have a motion and a hint to send to approve travel for Samantha. I believe Samantha is handled on her own, so I don't need to approve for it. To approve attendance and as necessary for Dr. King and Dr. Fox, Law of the Rio Grande Conference, April 3rd and 4th. Any discussion?
does Eric know he's gonna go?
Yes, James, it's been broached. We've had some discussion about it. So I am prepared indeed. The agenda looks very rich. I think that this is going to be among the more productive and interesting conferences in this realm that we've seen in a while.
Okay, I know you're on there. So,
Yes, sir, I'm aware.
okay.
Any additional discussion? Hearing none, discuss closed. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Are there any opposed?
Mr.
Hearing
President,
no opposition, motion passes.
let,
Samantha.
let me just say, I apologize. I had a board member was unable to get in and out of the meeting. He was not showing in the waiting room while you were taking the vote. So Steve, I apologize about that. You weren't showing up and Naomi and I were saying, hey, let him in, but I couldn't see you. So that was right in the middle of the vote. I don't know when he dropped off. So you might want to just clarify with him.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lyles, we had a motion and a second from James and Joe Paul to send Dr. King and Dr. Fox to the Law of the Rio Grande Conference, April 3rd and 4th. Do you have any comment? So I don't know if you're speaking, but we can't hear you.
Mr. President, I didn't mean to put him on the spot. I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure you were aware that I had that technical issue while you were taking the vote.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So Mr. Lyles, I didn't hear any input from you. So at this point in time, the chair declares that the motion has passed. That concludes the agenda items we have for the regularly scheduled board meeting. Are there any further updates which the board needs to receive from staff?
This is James. I think everything's okay.
Thank you, James. Hearing no further requests for updates, the chair will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make
This is
that
James,
motion.
so move. Second.
I have a motion from Dwayne Gillis and a second from James Solopek to go into closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. We are now in closed session.